When my children were really small, there came a time where they had to learn how to let go. They would have grasped a toy in their chubby fingers or a carrot stick, and they would be willing their hands to let go and release the carrot stick, but they didn't yet know how to do it. They hadn't formed those neural pathways. And so it was hilarious to watch them shake their hand or bang their little fists on the table in order to stimulate the release mechanism for their fingers. And the same is true of us. We learned at one point how to let go. Our muscles learned how to release and expand as well as how to constrict. And our bowels learned how to let go in order that we had a poo. And at some point, we also learned how to let go from our heart. There came a point when we experienced, probably early on in life, our first loss. Maybe that was the loss of a pet who died, or the loss of a grandparent, or the loss of friends because we moved house. Or perhaps it was more serious with maybe the loss of a sibling or a parent. And it was that first experience of painful grief that taught us that we needed to let go, and eventually that we would be okay even if we let go of that person or that experience. And we've come to that part of this segment of the wellness sphere where I want to look at the principles of letting go, both in terms of our bodies letting go, but I suppose more prevalently the idea of our hearts and minds and spirits letting go. And I really do think that this topic is underrepresented in the whole industry of personal growth. There are just not enough experts and not enough people writing books about surrender, letting go, dealing with grief, and healthily walking through life with lightness. And so that's really what I want to bring to you in this segment, and to ask you, how could you up level? Like my kids with the carrot stick, how could you up level your skills of letting go? And how could you tread more lightly on the earth and not carry as much baggage emotionally and mentally as you walk lightly through life? And in order to think about this a little deeper, I just wanted to turn to the work of one of my favourite spiritual teachers, a lady called Cynthia Bourjault. And I want to read quite a long extract from her book because she so helpfully talks about this subject of letting go and really connects it to the idea we looked at just now of kenosis, or the kenotic path, the self-emptying path to health and growth. So I'm just going to read a little bit from her. And this is from a book she wrote called The Wisdom Jesus. Fascinating confirmation that kenosis is indeed an evolutionary human pathway is emerging from, of all places, recent discoveries in neuroscience. From fMRI data collected primarily by the Californian-based HeartMath Institute, you can now verify chapter and verse that how you respond to stimuli in the outer world determines which neural pathways will be activated in your brain and between your brain and heart. If you respond with any form of initial negativity, which translates physiologically as constriction, freezing, bracing, clinging, clenching, and so on, the pathway illuminated leads to your amygdala, or reptilian brain, as it is familiarly known. That most primitive part of your hindbrain, which controls a repertoire of highly energized fight or flight responses. If you can relax into a stimulus, opening, softening, yielding, releasing, the neural pathway leads through the more evolutionary advanced parts of your forebrain and surprisingly brings brain and heart rhythms into entrainment. So when I talked about exercising that muscle of letting go, you can see now that I wasn't simply using a metaphor. Every time we manage to let go of a thought in centering prayer, consenting to the presence and action of God within, the gesture is actually physically embodied. It's not just an attitude, something actually drops and releases in the solar plexus region of your body, a subtle but distinct form of interior relaxation. It's amazing the gift that studies like the HeartMath Institute ones have given us is to be able to track the changes in our brain and body in results of external stimulus or external actions. And the way that our amygdala brain protects us by constricting and bracing or freezing to activate our fight-flight systems is an incredible skill that humans have. But yet, if we on repeat activate that thought process, we actually cause misalignment in our bodies. We cause our brain activity to be out of alignment with our heart activity, and that this can in turn affect our wholeness and our well-being. It is in fact in responding with openness and curiosity, two themes that we've talked about throughout this course, and in softening and relaxing to life. And especially at those times when that's counterintuitive for us. It takes all of our mental willpower to breathe more deeply when we want to shout out, and to soften our look when we want to be really hard and tense. But in those moments when we can reroute the brain activity through our frontal lobe, through those critical functions that will get us to pull on our imagination or pull on our habit creation. In doing that, we give ourselves a chance to regulate more effectively, for the brain activity and heart activity to come into alignment, which the HeartMath Institute have demonstrated in absolutely tons of research, that is the condition that our body grows and expands. And so it is our responsibility as human beings to find ways to work against the natural trajectory of our biology, to flinch, to tighten, to constrict, and to allow energy to flow through us in forms of letting go and relaxing. We have, of course, long been able to explain the link between stress, particularly chronic stress, and illness. And I'm sure many of you watching this video, me included, will have experienced the impact on health and well-being in terms of mental, emotional health, but also physical health of chronic stress. I know that for me, I've watched several family members and also myself, I've had a period of ill mental health that was brought about by that constricting thing that happens in stress, and often we can't help it, which is why it's all the more important to mindfully engage and face into the stresses in our life and figure out how we bring ourselves to those and how we show up for life as a human being. And this whole idea, I suppose, is conceptually illustrated in a story that I really love of two monks. And the two monks had both taken a vow of chastity, and they were traveling between one town and another, walking along, when they came to a woman who was stood by a river. And the woman was upset because she wanted to cross over the river, but was afraid that the current would sweep her away. So one of the monks stepped forward without hesitation, picked up the woman, waded into the river, and carried her to the other side. She was grateful, and she went on her way, and the monks continued to travel. After some time passed, the second monk turned to the first and said, "I'm really upset with you. Haven't we both taken a vow of chastity? And yet you not only touched that woman back there, but you picked her up." And the first monk said to the second monk, "I did. I picked her up and put her down again, whereas you are still holding on to her." And it is sometimes, I think, in the anecdotal stories of life that we can get the best illustrations of what it would mean to not only let go in the face of difficulty and in the face of stress or maybe having been wronged, but what it would mean to live letting go as a practice in life. To not grasp and hold on to things, but to travel lightly with open hands, and to allow our associations, our identities, our relationships with others to freely go as they freely come. And I do think that this is some of the work that we need to do, particularly at a deep spiritual level, in order to enable lightness, freedom, inner peace, inner relaxation, and that physiological benefits that come from heart and mind entrainment, and all of the up-leveling of our mind and body that comes with that. And so that serves as an introduction to this whole big idea of letting go. But right now I want to get very specific, and the next few parts of this section, the last few parts of this section, are a few steps in an integrative practice, starting with spirit, moving to soul, and then to body. How we might actually repeat the actions of letting go. There's a number of ideas I've got that I would like you to try out and to see which ones connect with you and which ones can really aid you and help you in your life of health and wholeness.